teacher says every time a bell rings, the podcast gets a new subscriber. Well, ring-a-ling-ling, ring that bell, folks. It's Support Your Local Podcast, the show where we take a look at some of our favorite movies, one chapter at a time. I'm your host, Robert Smith, coming to you from beautiful Tombstone. Yes, that one. Today's going to be a goodie. We are finishing up. We are in the home stretch of our 8 Christmas movies that I have to see every year. And today is a doozy and question mark, maybe my most controversial take on a movie. You'll probably ask, why is it that I even watch this one every year? But we're going to find out. Today it's A Wonderful Life, the Jimmy Stewart, Donna Reed classic. A little history of it. It was released on December 20th of 1946. So coming up on an 80th anniversary here in the next few years. Budget for it was $3.18 million, and the box office on it was only $3.3 million. So of the movies that we're doing, this is by far the closest to a flop. But coincidentally is right there in the time frame of our Christmas Carol movies. So it's one of the older ones, but it's still around and is now considered a Christmas classic. It was not ever intended to be a Christmas story. It's definitely not meant to be a Christmas classic. It just kind of became that way by mistake. As I said, it was commercially pretty much a flop. Critically, it wasn't that well accepted at its time. It's just kind of grown in the history and kind of been appreciated more throughout the years. But the reason that it is because it's been in our conscious for, like I said, close to 80 years, is because the rights to it were so cheap that it was easy for many of the TV networks to kind of scoop it up and then play it. Cheap for them, it's content. Back before we even had streaming services, even the channels were just looking for cheap content to throw out there. And especially during the Christmas season where people were out doing other things, ratings aren't as big a deal. This was a cheap scoop up, so it played pretty consistently on TV throughout the decades between where it was released and where we are now. And that's kind of where it grew into our consciousness. So we've seen it so many times that it's just kind of became this classic. And then granted, with the cast that we have and the director of it, it's grown in appreciation now that we've seen all their other bodies of work. But yeah, it was definitely not a classic from the start, unlike our Christmas carols. It is based on the story The Greatest Gift from 1939. And RKO, the studio, bought the rights to it in 1944 and was originally intended to star Cary Grant. This was going to be a Cary Grant vehicle. But that obviously got changed and went to one of my favorite actors, Mr. Jimmy Stewart, which I can't, after seeing this so many times, I just can't picture another person in that role. Nothing against Cary Grant. He's a fine actor. I just don't know that he would have been the person that made this what it is. NBC bought the rights in 1994, and now they show it on Thanksgiving and Christmas Eve every year. It is an appointment television event every single year, something that you don't necessarily see anymore. A little history myself with it. I honestly don't remember ever seeing this as a kid. I'm sure my parents probably had it on at some point, but it doesn't register with me. My first memory of it is the clip of it, and what I kind of spoofed at the beginning here, is the clip about the angel getting its wings in, I think it's Christmas Vacation, where they play that. Don't quote me on that. I'll probably break in with, oh yeah, it was this, but I'm pretty sure it was Christmas Vacation. It was one of the other Christmas movies. There's the clip of the kid with the bell ringing on the tree and says, "Daddy, Daddy, Angel says every time a bell rings, an angel gets its wings," and he, does the wink to the angel. My first time that I know for a fact I've seen it would have been the year that I moved out and into my own place, so around 21-ish. So we're talking 2003, 2004-ish. Bad math. Yeah, 2003. I got a bunch of Christmas DVDs, and this one was included in it. So it was, as I spoke to in previous episodes, it was when I was amassing my Christmas collection so that I could start my marathons, and this was one of them. And and actually this one may have been the movie that I made it a habit of making sure that it was a must watch. So the other ones I would just routinely watch, but this one is again appointment television, so I would go towards watching specifically for that. And full disclosure, this is where my hot take and controversy kind of comes on it. I don't watch this the same as everybody else. So much like the Baby It's Cold Outside controversy of a few years ago, I've actually been calling that stuff for years. And long before it was a major outcry, I was working at Walmart. I was working in the inventory control team. Shout out to Rich, Michelle, Beth. You guys are my peeps. I miss y'all. But I would tell them every time that Baby It's Cold Outside would come on Walmart radio, I would say, just listen to the lyrics. This is a date rape song. Sorry, trigger warning. But like, I don't see how this is a Christmas classic. Like he is talking about coercing her into something she doesn't want to do. And there's even the illusion of him spiking her drink. And everybody laughed and laughed and laughed. And, oh, you're crazy. You're nuts. But then every time it would play after that, they'd go, huh, and come up to me and mention, yeah, it does sound kind of odd. Okay, same thing for this movie. So as much of a time-honored Christmas classic that it is, there's some wild stuff that goes on in this movie that I don't care if it was a product of its time. Every time I watch it, I have to laugh at just some of the outrageousness that got by with censors. And we'll get into that here in just a bit. Some of the pros. So obviously the cast, like I said, Jimmy Stewart, classic. I mean, being a Western buff that I am, I have to be a Jimmy Stewart fan. I used to be able to do a pretty good impersonation of him. I'm not going to embarrass myself right here with it. But those that have heard it, it's pretty good. Donna Reed, absolutely beautiful actress, great actress. Know her from the Donna Reed show episodes that would show on at Nick at Night. And then this as well. You know, you look at her and that's just a perfect example of what back in the day was a classic actress, a leading lady actress beauty to her, and a poise, and just she was just kind of that total package in regards to that. Lionel Barrymore, you know, acting royalty. He's Mr. Potter. And I didn't put the two and two together until I was doing the notes for this movie, but you know, here you have a Christmas classic that has a grizzled banker who is looking out for nobody but himself during Christmas time. And I wonder if he is meant to be like an Ebenezer Scrooge if he hadn't have changed. So if we're doing, excuse me, like, you know, as we get into the alternative realities type stuff that this movie steps into, is this a multiverse version, to bring it to current terms? Is this a multiverse version of what Ebenezer Scrooge would be? So just thoughts. Tell me what you think. Hit me up in the comments. And then my another pro of it is, you know, as I mentioned, is this is just an absolutely bonkers story. So good news of it is if you look at it through that lens and you have some gallows humor, if you have some kind of dark humor to you, it's a very funny, entertaining movie. And another pro of it is, you know, this had to have been some inspiration that was drawn from it to do Back to the Future 2. I talked about the alternative reality. So, here is this guy going back and finding out that, if it wasn't for him or a mistake that he made, the reality would be this dystopian future where this guy has essentially taken over the town, became a billionaire, and has run it into the ground and runs it into the just destitute and is a horror scenario. So much like Biff of the alternate 1985, Pottersville would have happened if it wasn't for this character. So you have to think that when Bob Zemeckis is doing the Back to the Future sequel, see, I got Bob Zemeckis right this time, that he had to have been drawing some inspiration from this movie and other stories that kind of follow along this path. The only con that I have on here, or actually, I guess there's technically one and a half. One, it is a dated movie. So it's black and white. It's from the 40s. It's not something that my kids are probably going to enjoy. It's definitely not something Jess is going to enjoy. There's just a lot of its time stuff in this movie, and that kind of segues into my other con. So I said that a pro of it was just the bonkers story. Some of the cons of it is the bonkers story. So I would rather not show my kids a movie and then have to explain, oh, it was a different time back then. Oh, they treated people differently back then. But all right, check this out. Here is some of my hit list on what you should watch for, and I want you to. So Thanksgiving, Christmas Eve, whenever you watch this, if you have it on home video, please, please, please watch it. The next time that you watch this, and I challenged my buddy Harry Reid, shout out to Harry, I know you're one of my listeners. I challenged Harry last year when he said that this was a Christmas classic and he loved it and he loved watching every year. I said, okay, and I gave him my whole hot take, and I said, next time you watch it, look at it through this lens. And I would venture to bet that no matter how hard he tries, Harry probably sees this in a different light now. So here we go. There is in this movie a suicide attempt. So when Jimmy Stewart tries to kill himself to answer for the problems that life has given him, there is a suicide attempt. Trigger warning. There is a attempted sexual assault. So stretch on this. There's the scene where they're walking home from the dance and she is in a robe and he steps on the robe and it falls off and she's naked in the bushes and he refuses to give her her robe. Joking or not, it's not cool. I'm looking through it in 2022 cancel culture eyes, which I don't believe in, but looking at it through that lens, not good. But also in the dystopian future, when he runs into her, when she's, I believe, a librarian or whatever she ends up being, he runs into her in the middle of the street, and obviously she doesn't know who he is because he doesn't exist. He just grabs her and shakes her and kind of forces himself onto her, to the dismay of this poor woman who this is a complete stranger to. And this is not the first person he runs into. He is aware at that point that he does not exist in this reality. It's just like if Scrooge went back into the past, but was in corporal form to where he could interact with the people in there. Fortunately for Scrooge, they're just shadows. They're just memories. So they can't see him. They can't hear him. But in this case, they can. He's interacting with these people. So check it out for that. There is police brutality on several occasions during this. It even goes to the point that when I believe it's off the top of my head, it's the same scene. It's when he accosts Donna Reed. He goes running off because the cops are trying to stop him. The cop goes down and opens fire in the middle of a crowd during Christmas. Holy crap, guys. The cop just pulls out his gun and just starts shooting at this guy because he ran away. Oh, there is child abuse. So when the boy playing the Jimmy Stewart character when he was younger tries to tell the pharmacist who is actively drinking while he is performing his pharmacist duties for good. I'm not saying it's not for good reason. He loses his son in the war, I believe, but still. So drunk pharmacist then grabs him, slaps him. It's chef's kiss on things that you just cannot and should not do in today's age. And then, as I spoke, the drug and alcohol abuse throughout as well. So, just throwing it out there, all these things. Hey, what doesn't scream the spirit of Christmas than those things? So, I challenge you again. Check out the movie. Watch it through those lens, looking out for those people or those events, and see if it makes you enjoy the popcorn a little bit more, and you get a more of a chuckle. So if you didn't enjoy the movie before, you thought it was boring, look at it through that lens. To finish up, does it make me cry? Yes, I'm not even going to sugarcoat it. So every single time that I watch that movie, regardless of how hilarious I find some of those pieces, the very end of it, not throughout the movie, it's just that very end scene with the just how they capture the reformation of character for Jimmy Stewart and seeing the community come together and help him. Dude, that gets me every single time. I am a sucker for any type of group outpouring. So that's why yeah, anytime I see that acceptance and all that coming from a community or people of their peers, that's the stuff that I eat up and gets me literally every time. It didn't always get me when I was a young adult, when I was first watching this, maybe here and there, depending on where my headspace was. But now that I'm a father and such, yeah, you see the weight of the world being on this guy's shoulders, and you kind of, I mean, not kind of, you fully sympathize with what's going on. And being someone who has tried his best to help so many people, and I can't mention I can't mention one of these things without mentioning my dad, but knowing that the lives that my dad touched and seeing that that acceptance and that validation, I guess. Not that we ever do any of this for the cheers or the props. That's not what it's about. But when it is there and it's genuine, yeah, dude, I'm going to cry like a baby every single time. It just it really hits home when I see it again in this different mindset. So that is It's a Wonderful Life. I hope you enjoy it. Definitely go out of your way to watch it. If you can get a home copy of it, do so. I highly recommend it. However you want to watch it, if you want to watch it for the goodness of the Christmas spirit, or you want to watch it for the hilarity that ensues from what I said. Either way, just go out and enjoy it. We are very fastly approaching the actual day of Christmas. We only have two more to go. What will those be? Keep in mind, these 8 movies, they are not intended to be ranked. That's not how I'm doing this. But I may have selfishly left probably my two favorite ones for last. So we'll see which ones those are. So definitely stay tuned. If you haven't already, hit that subscribe button on your favorite podcatcher so you make sure that you don't miss those when they roll out. If you're looking for great Christmas gifts for your friends and family, hey, it's absolutely free to subscribe them up to the podcast. I greatly appreciate it. Costs you nothing, costs them nothing. But if you are looking for something monetarily, I'm just going to throw this out there. As it is the Christmas season, if you would like to do a donation somewhere and to make an impact in somebody's lives, two things that I always give to. They do great things. I always give to the Salvation Army, and I always give to Toys for Tots every year. We have been very blessed in our lives. We try to do our best to spread that and give back. So if you're able to, even if you have just some pocket change lying around, that all that adds up, and that goes towards two great causes during this season. One selfish plug, if you're a bowler and you want to make an impact in the lives of our youth bowlers, I do know about this little thing called the Smith Family Bowling Scholarship Foundation, or the SFBSF. It is obviously the foundation me and my family created. We do reward scholarships to our youth bowlers. So if you would like to put some money towards that and make an impact in some youth bowlers' lives, hit us up at sfbsf.com. You can also get there at rtsbowlingstore.com. There is a donation link there that you can do it through those, or you can get in touch with me through our social media, and I can point you in the right direction. But regardless of what you do, this is the season for giving. So please, if you are able to give to a worthy cause that you want to do, make an impact in somebody's lives. But until we meet again, folks, please keep an eye on us on social media. We are Support Your Local Podcast at Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. If you want to reach out to me for any questions, comments, concerns, feedback, definitely hit me up at SUPP, Your Local Podcast, so SUP, Your Local Podcast, at gmail.com. If you have not already, you can rate and review us on whatever podcatcher you're listening to us on. That helps us immensely. It just takes you a few minutes of your time. That's all it costs you. But on the back end, it really helps us out, gets us moved up in the rankings, gets us into that algorithm. So more and more people can hear about us, more and more people can check us out, and we can do bigger and better things. I appreciate that in advance. Until we meet again, folks, next week, know that I love you. Have a Merry Christmas, a Happy Holidays. But as always, support your local podcast.